this guy. It's a very expensive thing to do, to have to divert the aeroplane en route if somebody has got severe stomach pains, or if they've been injured in turbulence, perhaps. In a lot of cases, a doctor can preclude something. If somebody says, oh, God, terribly sore guts, and you think, oh, God, has this guy got appendicitis? Is he going to turn to peritonitis? Is his appendix going to rupture? We better get him to a hospital. So you make an emergency en route diversion. A doctor can carry out a few tests which involve certain things, and he can say, no, it's not appendicitis. He might just give him a polo or something. 5 minutes later, he has a huge escape of wind, and he said, oh, that's better, thank you. So that's something that the doctor can always preclude. I only had one birth on board the aircraft. I had 3 deaths, but only 1 birth. So I need to balance the books at the end of the day, I guess. But the birth was of an Indian lady. We're coming back from Bombay to London. Lady went into labour. We're over Turkey at the time, and the crew went on board, went on the PA, and they said, there's a doctor on board, blah blah blah. Nothing. There's luck without it. No doctors on board. They put out another call. They were just about to give up, and the cabin crew were going to have to deal with the birth, which was imminent. And this lady stopped her as she stopped one of the cabin crew going down the aisle. She said, I'm not a doctor, but I do have medical training. If there's anything you think I could do to help. And the cabin crew said, you wouldn't happen to be a midwife, would you? She said, yeah. So this lady, she'd been retired for many, many years, but I guess it's something you don't forget how to do, is it really? As to when it comes to delivering babies. How are we doing for time? Are we
fine.
5 minutes or so?
5 minutes will be fine.
Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to share this little story with you. This was told to me by one of the passengers on board one of the cruise ships, who was an ex-United States Air Force colonel. Now, he swore that this was not him in the story. But the story goes something like this. This American B-17 pilot, he'd been in England during the war, flying B-17s out of one of the airfields in either Suffolk or Essex. And he'd been back, and he thought, I must go and see if I can find the airfield that we used to fly from. So he driven around the countryside. He'd managed to locate not only the little village, but also the location of the airfield that they had flown from, which was now, sadly, a Bernard Matthews turkey farm. So it was a little bit changed from when he remembered it. And he then found the pub that he and his aircrew had drunk in during their time in the country. So he walked into this fairly, absolutely deserted bar, and there, sitting at a table, were 2 oldish, distinguished-looking English gentlemen. Now, these 2 were brothers, one of whom was a little bit hard of hearing, a little bit deaf. Good evening, gentlemen, said our American friend as he walked into the bar. Good evening, one of the brothers replied. It's great to be back in your lovely country again, continued our American friend. What did he say? Said the slightly deaf brother. He said, good evening, Henry, and lovely to be back in our country again. So you've been here before, have you, sir? Yes, sir, I was here for 2 years, 1943 to 1945. And what were you doing here, sir? Well, sir, he said I was here. I was flying B-17 bombers out over Germany when I was here. What did he say? He said he was here for 2 years and he was flying bombers over Germany, Henry. And were you billeted in the village, yes, sir? Were you, did you stay here in the village? Oh, yes, sir, he said. We were billeted here. He said, did the people in the village, did they show you their hospitality? Oh, yes, sir. They were most hospitable in every way. What did he say? He said they were looked after well by the people in the village, Henry. He said, tell me, sir, he said, you didn't by any chance happen to know Lady Plumley, did you? Lady Plumley, sir? Just between you and me, sir. He said, I was sleeping with Lady Plumley pretty well every night those 2 years. The brother said, what did he say? He said he knew Mother very well. Well, I managed to gallop through that all right, didn't we? Really? Is that all right? Are we all right for time there? Perfect. I'm very happy to take any questions if you have anything that you think you would like to ask. If I can answer them, I will. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for that very interesting talk. I didn't fall asleep as I usually do. Thank you very much. The only issue that I have with your comments is that you didn't mention the ground engineers. Now, very much.
Only, I think I mentioned when they were on strike.
Yes. But there are some of us here today. I mean, the pilots used to break the airplanes, we used to fix them.
Absolutely right. Yeah. I can't deny that.
Thank you very much.
No, I wasn't. No, sorry. It was a bit of a quick run through today. Next time we do ground engineers, we do customs, we do immigration. Oh boy. Sometimes I have those in the audience too, and I say to them, "I bet you wish you hadn't put your hand up." Yes, sir.
I read in the press recently an article that said in effect, and it's this that crew and aircraft did not really get on, by which it meant that in an emergency the automatic systems and would be doing something that was counterintuitive to the cabin crew. I wondered if
It's been very much in the news. Am I still on here? We can't have both. Oh, okay. Yeah, this gentleman's question was, it's about man-machine interface, basically, in the modern aeroplanes, as to how the pilot interacts with the controls on the aircraft. Now, I mentioned the Air France crash, and I also mentioned the AirAsia crash. It appears that the Air France crash was caused by wrong control inputs by the crew's failure to understand what the system information was telling them. One of the pilots was pulling back on the control column in a fully stalled aeroplane. In other words, the wing had stalled, the aircraft was fully stalled. The only way to recover from that is to push the stick forward, get the nose down, get the speed back, unstall the wing, and then climb away again. By holding the stick back, there was never any way the aircraft was going to come out of a stall. And they hit the ground going down at, I think their forward speed was 128 miles an hour, and their downward velocity was 11,000 feet per minute. So they would have died on impact if they had not already succumbed during the descent. It is something which is going to be in the news, and this also comes into the courses that I'm doing at the moment called CRM or ARM, Crew Resource Management. How you integrate your crews together. Because, tragically, and I don't mean this with any disrespect whatsoever, in Asian cultures especially, we have this deference to authority culture. In other words, the young co-pilot will defer to his captain in the left-hand seat. Instead of saying, listen here, you stupid old twat, this is what's gone wrong, this is what you got to do about it. They say, sir, I think maybe, sir, I think this is not working the way that, instead of saying, do something about it now, they won't do that. I, as a co-pilot, had to take control of an aircraft in my whole flying career twice from a captain who was about to kill us. I had no problem in doing it because I was about to die. Afterwards in the bar, I said, "You ever do that to me again?" I said, "I will take you outside, I will beat you shitless, and I will then wheel you into the chief. I will then wheel your corpse into the chief pilot, and I will shock you." And they had the grace to say thank you, but. Okay, we might not have died, but we were very close. We were 6 seconds from death at one stage. We were 100 feet above the ground, going down at 1,000 feet a minute, and way below limits for that approach.
With passengers?
With passengers, yes. Yeah. So, So, that is... The man-machine interface argument will go on for a long time to come. I don't like Airbus philosophy. I don't like the fact that one pilot can pull the stick all the way back in the right-hand seat, and the guy in the left-hand seat won't have the ability to override that unless there are certain actions taken by both pilots. But if you don't understand what the system is telling you, you're in Queer Street. Now, it's in a Boeing, you see. I'm a Boeing man. The controls are interconnected. So if I pull my control column back, his goes back as well. If I turn it, his turns. We're interconnected. So we can see visually what's going on, and we also have tactile feedback. On the Airbus, it's only like these little things that you have on your computer. It's just a little spring-loaded joystick. That's all it is. It's not connected to anything. It's just there to make the pilot feel better. Okay? No, it sends signals to the computer, and the computer then sells signals to the control surfaces. But it is so non-intuitive, whereas the old-fashioned controls, which Boeing still build on their new airplanes, will tell the pilot who's doing what and by how much they are doing it. Okay, if he's got the control column all the way back like that, that's the airplane stalled. It doesn't matter what speed you're doing, you will stall the airplane if you bring it all the way back. At which point you're going to be going down. In which case you think, now how do I recover from a stall? I know, flying lesson number 2. Move the control column forward, unstall the wings, ease out of the dive. We'll walk away from it. So yeah, it is a very, very ongoing problem, I think, for pilot training, crew resource management, crew integration. It's all ongoing, and we're still learning, tragically, by other people's mistakes. Which is, it's sad, I know, but there we are.
Well, thank you, David. I think that's the most interesting and entertaining talk. We've all had a good laugh, and thank you so much indeed.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thank you, David. Just a couple of words, if I may. You will all have noticed you had a sheet of A4 paper on your chairs, or the Camberley district members, rather, which is the invitation to the President's Dinner on the 15th of April. And those of you that look after widows, you don't need to ask me for a form, because I've written personally to all our widows and sending them a form, in addition to which I've also sent them our outings programme as well. So that's all covered. So if you fill in those forms and bring them back at the March lunch as normal, that'll be fine. All it remains for me to do now is hand over to Stuart to wind up the day.
Thank you, Ryan. So, yes, do they quick watch up?
I actually am going to stand up and thank you all very much for having us. I didn't do this after lunch because we hadn't been through the whole morning, and I didn't know